All right, we're starting to see people come on. We want to welcome you to this joint Turnitin ASCILITE live webinar. As you come on, if you want to just pop where you're coming from in the chat, so we know where you're coming from. I see a few familiar names popping on. I'm David Porter. I am representative of the ASCILITE executive, and we want to welcome you to this webinar. As a reminder, today's webinar will be recorded. So please keep that in mind. As we go through, you will be able to post your questions in the Q&A, which is located right down at the bottom of the screen in the pop-up menu. So you can actually pop your questions in there. Joining us today are Dr. Kevin Argus, Senior Lecturer and Graduate School of Business and Law, Professor from RMIT University, and Dr. Jessica Helmi. She is a lecturer in the Graduate School of Business and Law at RMIT University, and they're going to talk with us about embedding industry practices in authentic assessment, assists to optimize the teaching, research, and practice nexus, shared academic experiences. Just before we move on, I wanted to put in a little bit of a plug for ASCILITE, one of the co-sponsors of the webinar today. ASCILITE is a community of connected practitioners and academics and researchers who are working to progress the role of technology in learning and teaching. And what I love about being part of this community is that we have lots of events like this where we can come together and discuss ideas that are actually moving learning and teaching forward. And just on this slide, you can see we've got lots of stuff happening. So if you're not a member of the ASCILITE community, come along. But we also have opportunities for folks who actually don't want to become members. And you'll see that down in that bottom left-hand corner. We do have special interest groups. They are open to a much broader community. So we want to encourage you to take that up. And now, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck, who is going to take us on into the rest of today's program.
Thank you, David. Welcome, everyone. I've just put in the chat. Whilst you're telling us where you're coming from as well, feel free to tell us what you want to get from today's session. My name is Chukwudi Ogo. I am the Assessment Solutions Consultant for Turnitin Asia Pacific. Today's session, we're looking at how we can begin to embed industry practices in the design for authentic assessment. And we've got Dr. Kevin and Dr. Jessica who will be joining us. But before we commence, I'd like to acknowledge the elders, both past, present, and emerging. Acknowledge the elders of the land for which Turnitin is currently doing business, the Wurundjeri people of Melbourne. I'd like to say, pay my respects and say thank you for this unique opportunity to be providing today's session. I also would like to acknowledge the elders, both past, present, and emerging, for all the participants, or rather the territories from which the participants are coming in today. And want to say thank you again for this opportunity to presenting alongside or hosting with Dr. Kevin and Dr. Jessica. Just for housekeeping purposes, the chat, we can have conversations back and forth with regards to what today's session is about, but preferably for Q&A, questions and answers, questions that you require the presenters to respond to, please use the Q&A. We'll be moderating the Q&A, and at the end of the session, we'll pose the questions to the presenters. If you feel like someone has asked the question that you would like to respond to, I think there's an option for like an upvote, so feel free to do that, and we'll call these questions out at the end of the session. I hope today's an enjoyable session, and it begins to get us to think more critically about how we do this across our institutions. Over to you, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Chooks, and it's a pleasure to be here. to talk about a topic that is very close to my heart. So as mentioned, I am a senior lecturer in the Graduate School of Business and Law. I'm also the MBA program manager. So that extends to face-to-face and online programs. And I guess and Jess and I are both education and engagement focused academics. And I just want to sort of prime, I guess, my talk around some of the tensions that academics face in terms of meeting their KPIs around their teaching and learning commitments, their need to engage internally and externally, and also their need for academic research output. So I guess that sort of gives a sense of where we're coming from professionally, whilst also at the program level, designing courses that provide authentic assessment and practical learning for our students. And that's really, you know, the context of the challenge that we face. So if I move to the next slide, here we go. So you can see that fundamentally, we're going to cover a little bit about the aims of authentic assessment. Look at I guess the teaching research nexus, which is really this introducing research into the classroom. It's been around for a long time as an ideal. There's some research that shows that that is challenging to meet. There's another framework that extends the teaching research network, nexus at least, to include practice. And that's really what I've adopted. And I've adopted it for good reason, for reason that's mentioned in the research that I'll briefly allude to, but also because it helps with that tension of meeting that sort of that trilogy of KPIs around teaching, research and engagement. Also looking at, I guess, a case as to why that nexus it provides a good framework for developing authentic assessment, utilizing industry practice, and I guess some examples so that you can sort of see, well, you know, what learnings have we got to share, both myself in the postgraduate program, in the MBA program, and Jess in our brand new Bachelor of Business degree course, which is very much future focused and very much about embedding industry partnerships, which you'll see when Jess comes to speak. So authentic assessments empower students to do their best original work. And if we just unpack that, well, we're talking about authentic assessments in the context of industry projects designed to get students involved in solving real problems. So problems that they can relate to, but also problems that they can, in many instances, bring back to their own work experience. We find feedback from our student staff consultative committee on a regular basis that students, both local students and international students, respond really well where they get contextualized learning, theory into practice, which is really what authentic assessment is embraces. The empowering students component really is about the intrinsic motivation for involvement, as opposed to, you know, the old carrot and stick sort of trying to get students across the line with assessments. So like many institutions, we've moved, certainly in our school, in the business side of our school, away from the examination mode and much more into authentic assessment. And at a college level, there is an aim, a vision to embed industry in all programs, with all courses within all programs. So, so that really sets a target for finding really innovative ways to engage with industry, and for that to be something that, as academics, we become adept at doing and developing systems and processes to make this effective in terms of enablement, but also valuable in terms of the output. So the best endeavours part is that, you know, that students are encouraged to do this, and the original work component really also speaks to academic integrity, which has had a light shone on it in recent times. And certainly we do partner with the likes of LinkedIn as a tool for, one of the tools for, I guess, alerting to that type of behaviour. But the research into academic integrity does show that if you design for inhibiting or limiting the desire, the motivation to breach academic integrity, you have less problems. You don't necessarily eliminate it altogether. There will always be some of that behaviour going on, but the aim is to design around it. At the postgraduate level, the feedback that we get from both executive MBA and MBA students is that where there's authentic assessment that helps them to garner relevant knowledge about what's happening at the industry level that is relatable and transferable, that's what they thrive on, and that's what they believe they're coming for. Where we use a model that we used to use previously, which was more of the pre-developed cases, I guess more of the old Harvard case study model, there was less of that translation and less of that relatability. They tend to be somewhat aged. There wasn't a sense that a contribution was being made by the student. It was more of an analysis of an historic event. So if I move on to the aim of authentic assessment, the aim is authentic assessment, which is collaborative industry partnerships for teaching and research. And this little model that I put together there was really just, looking at this alignment of, your academics are looking to align their authentic assessment design with research enabling publication opportunities. Now that alignment, if that can be maintained or designed into industry engagement and authentic assessment, means that you are doing it with a broader vision to align the types of engagement with where your research interests are, with the potential along the journey to find some partners that might be able to be research collaborators. And that's what I'll speak to in the examples that I provide towards the end of this presentation. In terms of the industry partner, it's about designing value propositions that enable deeper partnerships. So I come from a consulting background, not as a pure academic, so I'm very familiar with the concept of value propositions and looking at engagement as a resource allocation and looking at engagement in terms of, well, how many resources, what's the nature of those resources that can be contributed, and what is the potential contribution that can be forthcoming. And then from a student perspective, this, translating in theory into practice in real world contexts, enabling skills development is certainly something that we're hearing much more from industry. We're hearing at the advisory board level that real skills that can be translated into a range of context is what students really need, and what we're building into our program design. So this is really a tool for doing that. The teaching research Nexus, it's interesting. There's quite a bit of research on that, and I'm going to just give you a very brief account of that. But I guess fundamentally, it's an ideal, and often what we hear from leadership within schools or colleges, potentially even at the program level, is this idea of, well, get involved. Your teaching is not necessarily a tension with your research. Just introduce your research or use some of your research output as case studies or examples, or your ability to design an assessment that maybe continues that conversation. Unless there's some way that it's going to provide real value for the researcher to enable them to profile what they do, to maybe provide other opportunities for some renewed thinking or potentially reimagining or a different lens or something, uncovering another part of the puzzle, then it's really quite a challenge. But that's sort of the ideal. And this ideal is an ideal that's been somewhat underwhelming in practice. And this is what, myself and colleagues have found, similar outputs to what was found in a Swedish study. So Schneider did a study, Geschild and Bromston conducted a study of the 3 Swedish universities, and it was really interesting that they basically found that while there were ideals of close linkages between research and teaching, and this was really an idea that's been embraced, they found in practice what tended to happen was that there was a division of labour between teaching-oriented and research-oriented staff. Why? Because we all know that the merit of higher education is a merit system around publication. And so they'll tend to devote and allow those academics to spend more time doing that, and finding teaching-oriented academics, whether they're full-time or sessional staff, to do the bulk of the teaching. So I guess what's lost in there is this losing of this ability to really feed the richness of research projects and outcomes in more meaningful, authentic ways into the curriculum. So I found that sort of rather interesting to see that research had been completed in this around this tension, which is one that's very real for people in academia and higher education. So there's a long history of what this nexus can potentially contribute in terms of, Schneider describes a relationship as mutually integrated into academic education, theory informing learning to aid decision-making to inform practice, and from a learning and teaching lens, it informs teaching. So you've got research based or research informed teaching, and hence you've got that particular nexus that's formed. So it's not so much about convincing people that this is a good idea. It's about finding a way to make it work. And that's really, I guess, what I feel I can contribute to that conversation today. So in terms of informing practice, it's key for impact, according to Schneider and his researchers. So he did some research which was really interesting. I found really interesting because it's aligned with a research project that involves industry partners in the classroom. So it's a full nexus of teaching, research, and practice that aligns with Schneider's findings. And it's also aligned with the research theme of sustainability. So Schneider's research was in the context of sustainability, and fundamentally what he was finding was that in that particular context, in that realm, that not only do you need to, I guess, provide some outputs, but you need to inform practice to make a difference. And so that vision in terms of contribution from the research into practice also feeds neatly into this teaching nexus, because then you can design projects that are around practice informing, as well as building towards relationships with some of these industry partners that where the opportunity arises and there's alignment and value seen to create research potential. And that can really then aid the researcher in building some use cases or building some collaborators to apply for grants and the like, which is really the route that I've gone down. So so this was really the argument then for this teaching, research, practice nexus to become a way to, I guess, utilize this trend towards authentic assessment, which many of us have been asked to do, industry engagement, which is something we love to do, but we'd prefer it not just to be transactional, so that every semester or teaching period, you've got to go out there and find new partners. And for anyone who's been involved in doing that, they know there's a lot of time, a lot of resource goes into that. You can have a great outcome. You can get a great CES score, teaching score. But at the end of the day, you've got to then replicate that and live up to that again the next semester. So how do you have a pipeline of that? Or how do you potentially gain partnerships that can lead to multiple versions of building value that can feed into your course and or program? So I guess in terms of Schneider's model, he then just sort of showcases, whoops, here we go. I just thought a useful model, in this case, showcasing sustainability's got triple bottom line on the left, and basically suggesting that you can build that into teaching projects, assessments, various forms of authentic assessment, research. If it's aligned, you can build that in. You can look at an aspect of maybe a research interest piece that could be explored by students, pitched as an output. It can inform something for the industry partner in terms of guiding whether that looks like an idea worth further pursuing. And for the teacher academic who's also a researcher, that could be potentially targeting a grant or alignment in terms of some sort of collaboration leading to research. So they're not always grant oriented. You know, I've had industry partners who've said, look, we've got a heap of data. If you'd like to use this data for a research project, we're quite happy to work with you, give you access to that data. So there's all sorts of ways of, as we know, of going down the research path. So I guess the aims of the teaching research practice Nexus is really promoting equivalence between, you know, your teaching, your research and your practice activities, so that they're all activities that are not in tension, some viewed favorably because you feel that that's leading to better promotion outcomes, but rather they're in alignment. It does inform practice, which adds to impact, so you get a better impact story. And I'll be sharing, as I said, an example of this that's really worked in each of these forms for myself and the team of researchers that I've been engaged with. And it reflects a practical application of method, this triangulation of quantitative and qualitative methods in research and teaching. So this is really, again, following on from what Schneider was referring to. When I read this research, I thought this is a really great articulation of what I've put into practice. I've been really interested in this particular approach for some time. It was really neat to see that there was a framework around this and how this could be aligned with academic promotion, which is something I've recently been through, and successfully using this particular framework as a platform for strategically making sure that that I'm achieving outcomes at the, I guess, the program level, at the strategic level that the college and the school are aligned with, but also in terms of outputs that can go into that promotion piece. At the same time, of course, the big part of this is what we're doing in terms of at the student level. So well, that's your CES and your teaching scores. And so they tend to be reflective of the experience. And we know these experiences, the bar keeps raising. Anyone who's been teaching for some time will you know, sort of see that what happens is the bar keeps rising in terms of expectation. I think with authentic assessment, you can design so that the nature of the experience is new enough to the students that there is that relatable learning and that translatable learning. And where you design in that particular way, you get that intrinsic motivation and you get a lot of those aha moments. And as Jess will attest when she talks, we know there's a difference between postgrad and undergrad, but that's more about, I guess, the signaling and the nurturing and the mentoring and the nature of that in the context of how complex these projects of engagement and assessment design are. And I guess, as we know, a lot of that comes down to clarity in terms of assessment design and guidelines. It was really interesting just recently at a college level, discovering that you know, leading teaching and learning academics at the college level were very much on board with things like sharing exemplars and templates. And I thought, you know, yippee, I've been sort of singing that song for a long time. It was great to have this consensus among, you know, colleagues who are more senior than myself and, you know, I guess are in leadership positions within the college here at RMIT to, you know, really make that distinction that that's not what we're trying to assess, how somebody writes a report, but rather, you know, what is the quality of the critical thinking, the argument, the analysis that occurs within. And I think, you know, some of these sort of getting over those probably outdated mindsets of some that, you know, this is guiding or steering or whatever. If the authentic assessment is designed well and there's enough creative input that goes into developing something in the context of the theory into practice, then your rubric can assess things that are appropriate for evaluation, and you end up with less negative feedback from students and much more in terms of the positive experience. And for a lot of students, we certainly get students who return not having studied previously at all in terms of an undergraduate, or returning from not having studied for some time, or you even get those coming from secondary school into tertiary. You know, different formats of writing, whether it's essay or report or whatever it may be, are new, and we don't want those things to be the barrier, because really they're just artifacts, and they sometimes are a flavor and they change, but they have some fundamental ingredients. So I thought that's worth mentioning as well too, because that's something that we're very happy now to roll out, that we provide that across assessments. So that will reduce time wastage with tutors in classes explaining how something is to be laid out rather than focusing on the meaty part of it. So I guess, you know, this was really interesting too, Schneider, in the terms of sustainability management. The reason why I think this was really worth giving a little bit of attention to is we all know that sustainability, ESG, has extraordinary primacy because of the existential concerns of our time. And that's impacting the sort of work environments, the nature of work that our students are going into. So sustainability, you know, environmental, social, governance, economic outcomes, they're really at the core of concern. They're at the core of innovation. They need to be aligned with innovation in terms of innovation in technology. And what we're finding again at the advisory level, we're hearing that you know, there's been a shift, for example, from, I think, a survey that was done in 2019 showed 70% of Australian boards prioritised the likes of social and environmental impact. And now it's a survey done in 2021 showed 90% do. We're getting again from the advisory board that this is front and centre because Gen Z don't just recognise, like Gen Y, that ESG is of critical importance, but rather they think it's the fault of those who came before them and they should do something about it. And I thought that was quite profound, because what we're hearing at board level is, you know, there's this real call to action, and that's what these are the sorts of skills and mindset that recruiters are looking for. We certainly find people coming to our courses, and one question they ask is, you know, is your MBA, you know, is sustainability a core of your MBA? I mean, that's a very different question to what we would have had about 5 to 10 years ago. So what he was basically finding is, well, universities do play a critical role in that. And I guess, you know, he's really looking at here a number of ways that this can occur. And I guess my sense here is that we have a great opportunity through industry practice, industry engagement around themes that are relevant for your particular program. And in our MBA program, our key pillars are industry engagement, technology and innovation, and social impact. And that's at the college level as well. So every industry engagement partner that I engage with, it's always a conversation of, is there an ESG problem that we can address? And unsurprisingly, most of them, whether they're aware of why they're seeking engagement or not, potentially has an angle that you can perhaps guide the industry project towards. And in doing so, what that enables is, and we've got, you know, research incubators within the school. In other words, we've got incubators around the whole thing around human rights and social impact and the like. So where a project can then be a co-development of a potential solving a problem for the industry partner, that I know aligns with some of my research colleagues in, say, the realm of the likes of social impact, or it could be circular economy, which are two areas that I'm involved in research projects related to industry projects that I first brought into the classroom. All of a sudden, you've got a great hook, if you like, to go out to your research community or your collegial community to say, I've got a really interesting problem here that can be shaped. I know you do research in this particular field. I'd love you to become part of this conversation so that we can co-design something that we can solve for that fits within our assessment design. So the assessment design is not so rigid that it doesn't limit context or nature. And in doing so, all of a sudden, you're not just talking about, okay, I'm ticking a box of getting an industry partner to align with a particular assessment or set of assessments within a course. I'm actually now looking broader at this teaching research practice nexus. And part of the practice part could well be that, you know, somebody in the research, potentially collaboration team, might even say this could inform a framework that might, you know, be of value to industry, or this might be something that ultimately could lend itself to policy informing, or whatever it is in terms of the context of the research topic. And they could even look at, be aware of grants and sort of say, there's a grant with this particular focus. If we could maybe design authentic assessment that links to solving a problem in that arena. And I find when talking to industry partners, they'll come with a particular basic idea of what they wish to collaborate, but they're most interested, particularly when you can guide them as somebody who knows the research, knows what's really of value, and you know the sorts of outputs that you can provide. You know, I know I used to go with a formal written value proposition where I would suggest what I thought the project could look like. And what I found by doing so, it would get them over the line before the meeting started. So that was sent in advance, and they're already excited and thinking, we hadn't thought about this. But then in the meeting, there's an opportunity to say, well, that's a starting point. It can be massaged in different ways. So I thought I'd throw that out there, because what that does, it changes the conversation around authentic assessment, getting industry partners, a bit like saying, I just need an industry partner to fit in that's got a marketing problem or a strategy problem or a leadership problem or whatever it may be, to rather thinking about, we're doing something around social impact. Now, how does that fit within leadership? How does that fit within some of the research that academics or academics within Incubation Hub are interested in? So I guess why adopt it? Well, you've got you know, you've got this alignment, there's academic integrity that you design out in terms of being a major issue. And we certainly don't, where we have heavily, you know, authentic assessment design as central to course design. You'll always get something, but it's glaringly obvious. It's not, it's very hard with solving real life problems that are guided by the academic to find somebody who's really left of field. And there's publication potential and impact. And the other part about it is you can then promote, co-promote with the industry partner. And I find that's part of the value proposition. A lot of them no longer just want alignment with the university. They're looking for ways to be seen to be doing something, not just to be doing something. So, and we talked about students going to richer experience, industry gets value, and academics align with their particular needs. So I thought what I'd share is, I've just got here, award-winning shared value project. Well, I say that because we did win an award, which is really neat. And in terms of anyone who's going for promotion knows that you can do great things and get great scores and get great qualitative feedback from students, but that's not necessarily going to give you an outstanding rating on your promotion assessment. So if you've got it validated by a third party, that's really neat. So we started with an alumni, a conversation, literally just like a cup of coffee, did a great project with you when I was studying. I've got a project that I think could be of interest. And we talked about it. The more we talked, the more I saw it was aligned with social impact. So it was around shared value. We had partners, Ability Works, a disability employer, with a particular goal to increase their fully paid full-time disability workers, Transurban, Oricon, Apricot Consulting, where the alumni came from, and myself. And so literally we just designed them. They came into the authentic assessment. That was then pitched to Ability Works. They then took some of those outputs. So it's a marketing course at executive MBA and MBA level. It was taken to the steering committee. I'm on that particular, not a steering committee invitee, but rather became part of the shared value project. So I got involved with the industry partners as an academic observer with the original value proposition around this. I explained to them this teaching, research, practice nexus, that I'm really interested in seeing practical outcomes flow. I'm interested in observing what you do in this framework, and there's potential for research collaboration, which has ensued. So I pitched, if you like, or reached out to some fellow very research-focused academics who publish highly, people who normally wouldn't necessarily be that interested in knocking on my door as a research collaborator unless I had something of value to offer. So we got together. They were very interested, aligned with what they were into, B2B, and with Yona and Natalia very much in that CSR come ESG space. And so I guess that has led to lots of things. It's led to lots of opportunities to showcase together with the industry partners what we've done. It's led to media opportunities. So because I've been able to assume a degree of thought leadership in that shared value space, so I've been contacted by media around that project and another project in the circular economy space. So interviews from the likes of ABC around the country in various places where the various things are occurring. Internally within the university, this project was featured as the most impactful, or an example of high impact last year within the college, which was really good. I was going for promotion last year, which I achieved. So that was a neat sort of alignment. And also we've got some marketing happening at the university level, and that particular project was chosen as a narrative to feature student practical outcomes from their learning. And that was really neat, that what it's helped me to do in my role as a academic and engagement focused academic who still needs research output, to get involved in research output, but also to be able to tell really impactful stories that are gaining traction both within the university, sort of certainly within the school, the college level, but across the university. And that's what we all want. But it's inviting others to get involved, and it's helping our industry partners to find more embeddedness. So we're now moving to the stage of being more systemized about how we map these engagements and how we map the opportunities for our partners, so that this becomes more systematized. Because what we don't want is somebody like me to be excited about this and get all very busy, but if I leave or go to a different role, that could all die. We need this to sort of be embedded as practice that's useful, and to be able to write about that in terms of, subtle research outcomes. So I just put this slide here in terms of, yes, there were some really good outcomes, even being selected by the university for a particular award with the AFR, Australian Financial Review Industry Engagement of the Year Award. Well, we didn't win it. That wasn't so much the point of, is there recognition? It was being chosen to represent the university was really good. And it suggests that what we're doing is having impact. I think, having opportunities then to engage, the more that we engage, and this is not, I don't see these types of events as me being able to just showcase what I'm doing. I see it as a chance to maybe find network collaborators, have that conversation with others who are fellow academics in whether it's my own institution or other institutions, are looking at really creative ways to have industry practice impacting authentic assessment. And as I said, it impacts on promotion. Some of it is, I guess, just giving you an idea of the sort of assessments that we have. There's a research project, so that gets them exploring. That's very hard, therefore, for a student to breach academic integrity, because it's very focused on the industry partner. There's primary and secondary research. And what students are finding is, even those that come from a market research background, it's at a level that they've mostly not engaged at. So there's really interesting learnings. So that's learnings about, you know, the validation or the types of the distinguishing between primary and secondary research types. Feeds into something they do, that's individual level. This is a group level. They do the value creation piece, the strategy and plan, and they pitch that. And it's all around marketing 4.0. So we're, you know, high on the innovation in terms of the way that's linked to future of work and innovation. And then they do this personal brand action plan. And that's really repeating the first two steps from an existential self-reflective manner. And again, these things are not sort of thing that's very easy to pass to somebody else to do for you without it looking like a fraud. So we just don't find that that occurs, which is great. And I think just lastly then, I just wanted to sort of showcase, not to go through all of this in detail, but just sort of pointing out that some of these opportunities with particular industry partners do lead to things like grant applications. You might go so far on that particular journey, it may or may not come off. It may take different directions. But whether or not I end up with the grant or not, I've found what it's helped me to do is navigate across the university, learn more about the types of grants that are there, learn more about the support systems, and be invited as a collaborator because of, you know, being known for industry engagement, but also for moving things ahead. Not everything has to be a complete win. So we have got an ASA linkage that's sort of in play at the moment. We had a CRC that sort of went to a point of evaluation with another partner. I've got a partner at the moment that's in fintech who's offered me a heap of data that we can use for research purpose. So these things would not come about if I wasn't applying this broader vision of that nexus. And for students, whenever I'll hand over to Jess now, but I'm just going to say for students, when I you know, promote this on LinkedIn, it's really about recognizing that that they were part of this journey. They had real impact, and then I'm able to tell other students, new cohorts, and they get quite excited that they can make a contribution also. So over to you, Jess.
Thank you very much. Hope everyone can hear me okay. So I'm Jess. I work very closely with Agus, who have presented a very insightful teaching, research, and engagement Nexus. So I actually have numerous partnership experiences with Kevin, with the industry, in some of the courses that I coordinate in the MBA program as well. But for today, I'll be presenting more specifically on a brand new course that we have as part of the Bachelor of Business. So as you can see in this project as well, I work closely with the other research fellows in our school, especially regarding the relationship with the industry partners. So just a bit about the course, provide everyone a context of why we have industry partners in the course is, number one, the course really aims to teach students to examine the accelerating relationship between multiple stakeholders in the society, government, business, law, or profit sector to deliver social innovation. Because we know that social innovation won't happen without partnership between stakeholders in the society, and we want to teach students to also empathize on multiple stakeholders within the society so that they can identify or discover problems within the society and then find solutions. So we also use a lot of design thinking lenses when teaching students in this course. In terms of content, we co-created the content with numerous academics, as you can see on the right hand screen. We've got Kevin as our engagement expertise there. We've got researcher and also someone from law. So we are trying to bring in as much content as possible regarding how to promote social innovation, not only from the business perspectives, but from the law or legal side. So we've got that as well. We have multiple industry partners. It's an example that relates to Kevin regarding multiple partners working on the same project. So what's unique about the course though is that course. So this course is offered in the bachelor level, first year bachelor level course. Found school leavers. We teach foundation students, but work integrated learning courses, they are normally run at the later stage of the program, right? But with this course, it is very introduced first year. So you can, as you can imagine, a lot of students would need help in terms of how to work together well with the industry partners and how to work on a real industry-based challenge. So the course itself promotes authentic learning engagement with the industry partners. It is a non-placement wheel, meaning that students will work on the assessment based on an industry challenge that our industry partners presented. And so in that way, we also expected the industry partners to communicate clear expectations and continuously monitor student progress and feedback throughout the semester. And all of the assessments in the course are related to the industry challenge that I will be presenting shortly. So the industry challenge that we have in the course, I'll be very brief here. It's a unique one, I can tell, because normally in a wheel course or an industry-based course, we only have normally one industry partner, right, giving one challenge. But in this course, because the aim of the course really to encourage students to look at the relationship between the for-profit, not-for-profit sector as well as the government. So we would very much wanted for students to experience this relationship firsthand. So we were able to actually secure these partnerships of 4 industry partners in the course. Of course, I worked together closely with Kevin. We had lots and lots of meetings to be able to reach to this point, really. But in the course, we have 2 main industry partners, which is Australian Red Cross and Medibank. As you know, the ARC or Australian Red Cross is a not-for-profit, while Medibank is a for-profit company. So they are interested in giving or in looking into a shared challenge where students will work on a theme or a theme challenge in the area of loneliness. So both ARC and Medibank, they are really interested in what ways we can address the social issue of loneliness as experienced firsthand by our students. In the course, we will have around 1,500 students enrolled. So as you can imagine, the numerous data that we can actually gain and the numerous stories that we can gain from students' own lived experience, especially after the 2 years of pandemic. So that's the shared challenge provided by both not-for-profit and for-profit organizations, looking into students' own lived experience. So what they need to do in the assessment later is they need to identify and define the problem specifically as experienced by them, and then provide solutions that both Australian Red Cross and Medibank can actually implement in their organizations. But we don't stop there. We also have another extra 2 industry partners, as you can see on the right-hand side. It's Adobe and AWS also join us on board. They are also our authorized industry partners, but they are more of a tech enablers partners, meaning that They are ready to provide students with the tools and softwares or any platforms that students can use to when creating the solution. So as a result, we've got all of these 4 industry partners co-creating the assessments as well. Actually, in one of the meetings that we had a lot of inputs from the industry partners regarding the assessments that we design in order for students to work on this shared challenge. So briefly on how we design our authentic assessments with this particular shared challenge is that we have 3 assessment tasks in the course. The first one is individual report. This is when students actually explore the loneliness problem or issue by themselves. So we would like to look into their own reflection and their own personal experience regarding loneliness, also using a lot of design thinking tools and frameworks that we teach through the course. So students are informed and able to identify or specify the problem that they can work on regarding loneliness. And then it will lead to the second assessment task. Apologies for the typo there. The second assessment task is actually a group work, where now students have worked individually on the challenge. Now they can work together as a group to explore the concept of loneliness as a group. So really empathizing with each other, and then work on identifying solution for the problem. And the last one would be the final solution pitch, meaning that once students have identified the problem, find solutions as a group, now they need to justify the solution to the industry partners, the ARC and Medibank, and use the platforms that Adobe and AWS are providing to develop the solution. The solution can be anything really. It can be a video, an app, or anything that the students can suggest to both ARC and Medibank to implement to actually solve or help to solve this loneliness problem in the society. So that's just a bit of example of another, I think, brand new industry partner engagement that we have. Kevin and I are working on. The course itself is going to be delivered in semester 2, meaning that this July. And we have heard a number of great feedback already from our internal academics as well as the industry partners. They mentioned that this might lead to a joint research with the industry partners in the future because they're really interested in this topic. Also, we are applying for awards as well, and then some more funding opportunities for future projects. And then also we are drafting some research pieces as well out of this research, out of this project. So it's been a great experience. Hopefully it's a great example of how to connect teaching, engagement, research in a course as well. So with that, I hand over back to you, Chucks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Kevin and Jess. Just one question, and I know we're about 9 minutes to the hour. Kevin, would you like to respond to the question? I'm just going to read it out for everyone. It's from Tom Waddington. It says, does research teaching Nexus really exist? Why would researchers make good educators? That's a really good question. It's one of the things I've asked internally within me to work out, can researchers be really good teachers, and can it be vice versa? So Kevin, would you like to respond to that question?
Well, look, I mentioned before the bar has raised, and a lot of researchers have no choice but to engage in some teaching. So, we live and die by our CES scores. So if we can collaborate at the school level, at the program level, so that the journey for the researcher is one that aligns with what they're doing, then they're more likely to get involved and do a good job. To me, that question is really at what I think is the turning point, where certainly at RMIT we've moved well beyond, which is where once upon a time teaching was lecturing. We don't engage students in the classroom lecturing. All our lectures are pre-recorded. So if anyone wants to do their lecturing, they pre-record that, and that's part of the hybrid model, and students already come informed with all that. So you now have engaging, rich activity-based learning with students, and that's the way forward. So researchers love talking about their research and engaging people in activities. I think most people find giving lectures rather boring.
And Lisa was asking, what is CES score?
Oh, sorry, CES score is really a student survey. So it's measuring a good teaching score and a satisfaction, course satisfaction. And the items on the survey that really lead to the score are really around the quality of the feedback, motivating students to be their best, guiding students, mentoring them, and then the satisfaction around, you know, did the course live up to expectations and what have you. And there's qualitative feedback in that, but unfortunately, like many organizations, people are more bedazzled by statistics than they are qualitative feedback. So that becomes part of the formulation. It's not imperative that you always get great scores, but I'm finding, you know, about when I first joined RMIT in this school in about 2014, somebody put their hand up and said, I believe it's possible to get 100 on this. And everyone was looking around thinking, you know, you're mad. But now it's quite common. And the likes of Jess and I, you know, we're sort of high performing sort of teaching focused students, teachers, you know, we're finding we're not alone in that category of people who are winning awards within the school each teaching period, getting over 90%. But you don't get that if you don't engage well on those metrics. Students feel that it was of value to them, that they were guided and that there was quality feedback. You can't deliver that if you're an apathetic researcher who's just turning up to, you know, deliver the translation of knowledge and then sort of do the bare minimum, and you'll be pulled up for it. You know, we've got a minimum requirement now that you've got to really be meeting in the 80s plus. So that's even for our research folk that get a class. And where that's not the case, there's constructive assistance, which means how can we help you to better design this so that we, you know, you're part of the team who's delivering value to our students. And the pandemic has just shone a light on it. Where are the students enrolling? You know, where are they enrolling? So we're finding there's a move to online, and there's, with the international students, they haven't all come back yet. People care about the revenue. That translates to good teaching.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. I think CES used to be called, I forget, something experience survey. Course experience survey. Yeah. There's another question, and I think it's more of a comment and a question from Meg. I love the scaffolded industry connected assessment range for the example Jess gave. So I'm assuming Jess will have to have a stab at responding. What has been some of the student and industry feedback? And this is from Meg from Deakin.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, Meg. Great question. So actually, the course itself is scheduled to run this July, but our online version of the course is currently running. So yes, we do have student feedback on that. They just said that so far they're very excited in this challenge because it's something that they experience it themselves. So it's not too far stretched out from what they are actually experiencing, especially during COVID. So students really enjoy exploring and reflecting on their own loneliness experience so far. And the industry feedback, again, they are also very excited to look at what students might find once they are working together as a group, and what sort of solutions that students will pitch to the industry. And then some of the industry members told us, the team, that there might be funding moving forward if the solutions are really something that they can actually develop further. So we have been receiving a lot of great feedback throughout. Thanks for the question. Thanks for the question and the comment.
We don't have time, but I did have a pressing question, but I can take it offline with Kevin. I think my question was just around how to support the partnership model between the academics and the industry partners. If you've got 1 minute to throw light on what the best strategies are to manage that partnership?
I do think, Chooks, that really is understanding that there's a challenge in academia between teaching focused and research focused, and we need to collaborate. I think at the program level, that needs to be facilitated and supported. So literally before this meeting, I just presented at our team meeting for our school team. You know, the head of RMIT commented and said, we really need to provide a support network for this, to systemize this. And I said, that's great news. It's music to my ears, because we've already worked at setting up a particular event that showcases a range of what we offer to industry, and bringing along a range of, you know, inviting all of our team, which is research and academic. And I did say to the early career folk, but anyone who hasn't really ventured into that space of authentic assessment and engaging with industry, just reach out to me, because if I help you, you're helping me. I'm more likely to be somebody that you'll consider for a research project if I help you get an industry partner. It's all about collaboration and teamwork.
Yeah, perfect. I think it's all about establishing, fostering, and nurturing good partnerships to ensure that this is successful. And I like the idea that people are beginning to ask the question, because like you mentioned during your talk, if in the event that you leave the university, what happens to this big project? And I know Jessica can handle that just by herself. So it's good to build a partnership, think about sustainability, and see how we can begin to work strategically with industry to embed industry practices in assessment. I like the idea of how it can solve academic integrity challenges. So these are really good points you've raised. A big thank you to our presenters today, Dr. Kevin Argus and Dr. Jessica Helmi, for your time today. Special thanks goes to the ASCILITE team, David Porter and his team, for allowing us to collaborate on this. I also like to say a big thank you to our team internally for collaborating and bringing together everyone into this space so that we can make it an enjoyable session. I hope everyone got something out of the session. Feel free to reach out to us if you have questions or concerns, and I wish you all the best of the rest of the week. Thank you.
Thanks, Chooks. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.